You think that you're being tracked by a handful of companies, but the reality is that when you just access a single web page, your data is sent to countless different trackers before you even finished reading the headline.
People are still stuck in the mental image that the web is like a magazine, that you turn to a page and the page is one item. Like they don't imagine the thing being the combination of 100 requests to the internet.
So quickly just establish the stakes here, because a lot of people go, why does it matter if a website tracks what I'm doing and it sends it to countless third parties? What's the big deal? Well, for example, GM was secretly tracking 14 million drivers and sold that data to insurance companies, raising people's rates without their knowledge. Target identified a pregnant teenager before her father even knew and sent her maternity ads that revealed her pregnancy. Mental health apps sold user therapy data to advertisers, including details about depression and anxiety. Fitness trackers revealed secret military bases by exposing soldiers' running routes. These are things happening right now on every device, every app, every website you access. Online tracking isn't just invasive, it's invisible. But fortunately, with the right tools, we actually can do a ton to stop it in its tracks. So let's talk about what to do with the 3 different layers, generally from easy to hard, and so let's dive into each one at a time. The easiest entry point to start with is a browser extension. Now, I've done no shortage of coverage for how many malicious browser extensions there are. However, there are a few of them that will actually get you a very, very long way. There's also a lot of power here because this step will allow you to actually see every tracker, actually block those trackers, and figure out exactly who's tracking you in what context. The first tool is Ghostery, and they partnered with us to try to make all this information as accessible as possible. They have a really cool transparency tool on their website where you paste any URL, you see every tracking domain explained, as well as the connections that are tied to it. One thing is just blocking these things, but another is actually sitting down and understanding what each website is doing so that you're better educated. Extensions like this are awesome because they actually show you exactly what's going on each website, making the invisible visible. Now, uBlock Origin is a wonderful extension as well, which is also open source, does much more aggressive blocking, so you might get more breakage, and there's also maybe a little bit less visual feedback, but it is a favorite in our community. We also have the AdGuard browser extension, and of course, we have Brave's built-in shields, but we'll talk about browsers in this next layer. The reason why we worked with Ghostery on this video is because they actually give you a visual breakdown, which makes it easier for just regular people, grandma, father, mother, sister, brother, whoever, to actually understand why you're blocking and what you're blocking. And that's very valuable when you're first learning how deep this goes. So to summarize that step, you can keep your current workflow, don't make any changes, but pick a browser extension such as Ghostery, uBlock Origin, or AdGuard. Now, if you just did step 1, you're actually far ahead of most people on the internet. So you've already done a ton, to be honest, but there are privacy-focused browsers. So this will require a little more commitment, but also you don't have to fully switch over to a new browser. You can at least install it, play around with it, and maybe you can even bounce between the two, and then maybe in 2 months you'll switch over. So what this is going to do is it's going to do automatic blocking without you thinking about it. It's going to stop cross-site tracking attempts, and also it can do things like fingerprinting and script-based tracking protection. If you don't know what fingerprinting is, it's a pretty sophisticated way of tracking users all around the internet, and I made a whole masterclass video on that topic. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave that linked there. The point here is that extensions definitely help, but if you want to maximize your benefit even more, you can migrate to browsers that better respect your privacy from the ground up. So what browsers will I recommend? Well, frankly, there are a lot of them out there. I think a really good starting point is Brave. It has built-in shields, which blocks trackers by default, as well as ads, and has a lot of fantastic features that make this kind of stuff accessible to new people. Things like your lifetime stats. I mean, check out how much I've blocked over the years on this exact configuration. They even have more aggressive fingerprinting protection, and it's a pretty set and forget approach, and it's also for both mobile and desktop, though desktop does have third-party extension support, so you could even use a transparency tool to see more insights into each website on desktop. There is the DuckDuckGo app. It's not quite as robust on the protections as Brave, but it's still a really good starting point, and on Android, they even do app tracking protection, but it's a very simple interface for less technical users, and it is on both mobile and desktop, though I will just be frank here, I personally find their mobile options a little bit more compelling tracking. And of course, we can't forget kind of the OGs in the room. Firefox, at the end of the day, still has enhanced tracking protection that's inherently built in and customizable privacy levels, so you can make it standard and strict. It works with extensions for additional control, like all the extensions I already mentioned in this first section. The other cool thing about Firefox is that it is based on a web engine that's independent of Google. Of course, we have more intense browsers out there, like all these Firefox forks, Mulvad browser, Tor browser, etc., but I think those are definitely more on the advanced side of things. The key message here is pick one and stick with it. Switching to any of these browsers will dramatically reduce what trackers and websites can see about you. But what about your Messenger on your phone? What about the Amazon app on your phone? What about social media platforms that you have installed on your devices? All these things don't actually route through your browser, and so you're not really getting much of that protection we talked about. And if you actually analyze the trackers that are inside your applications, it's kind of a deep rabbit hole. So this goes far beyond the browser, and sadly, we do need some kind of network level / firewall level protection in layer 3. The first tools I want to showcase are DNS filtering tools, and these are kind of my favorite privacy tools out there because yes, they're more advanced, but they're actually really easy to set up. So tools like AdGuard exist locally on your devices, and they do system-wide filtering across all your apps, so not just your browser, and you can install this for desktop where it's actually far more robust and will literally block anything inside of any app, and it is pretty much just install, set, and forget. The filtering log shows every blocked request, and it actually has DNS filtering built in. Now, DNS is essentially what a lot of these different trackers are going to use to connect to the internet. They connect to these DNS domains, and so if you have a custom DNS that is instructed to do some blocking for these specific kinds of domains, you can actually block a lot of those trackers from contacting the internet. AdGuard has their own DNS that you can use inside of the AdGuard client. Keep in mind, those are two independent features. AdGuard for desktop does its own local filtering, but it can also function as your DNS provider as well. Also, you can set a custom DNS, and this is what I do. So I use AdGuard, and then I set NextDNS as a custom DNS provider. And if this sounds crazy, pretty much you're installing AdGuard locally on your system, you create a custom DNS thing for NextDNS, and then NextDNS is a different DNS filtering tool which gives you all these really cool controls. You can block specific websites, you can allow specific websites, you can do all these different tracker lists. I actually made a whole masterclass on just NextDNS if you want to learn more about how to use NextDNS in the most optimal way. And the really cool thing about these DNS tools is that you can even install them on things like your home router, and so all of your devices will just funnel through these DNS filtering tools, which will literally block these trackers on your smart TVs, IoT devices, laundry machines, dishwashers, fridges, whatever the hell has to connect to the internet nowadays. We also have local firewall tools, and so if you're on Linux or Windows, I really recommend Safing's Portmaster, and that is a tool that will show you all the domains that every app is contacting, so you can just go in and turn off certain domains, and it also has its own block lists that you can use to just automatically block a ton of well-known tracker domains, kind of like NextDNS and AdGuard do. And then if you're on Mac OS, you have two options. Lulu, which is open source, same thing as Portmaster pretty much, but it's a little rougher around the edges for the UI UX. And then we have the more polished tool, which is Little Snitch. It is a crowd favorite, people really like it, but it is proprietary and paid. And finally, of course, don't forget your just out-of-the-box device level opt-out. So on your iPhone, there's a lot of toggles that you can toggle to pretty much opt out of some of the tracking that apps do. Android has something similar. Windows has a ton of things to opt out of, as well as Mac OS. So these opt-outs won't stop everything, of course, but they do cut off some data pipelines. And when you combine that with layer 1, which is an extension in your browser, layer 2, which is having a browser from the ground up that protects you, and then layer 3, which is DNS filtering and firewall tools, you actually have complete coverage all across your devices. The tracking industry is kind of crazy. They do all these things behind the scenes, and the way that JP from Ghostery actually puts this is quite beautiful.
Once you notice that the experience of browsing the web without protection is a little bit like going to a supermarket and being followed by 100 men in black, talking into their little earpiece about what you are buying and keeping up, keeping a list on you and making sure that when you go to the next shop, the same guys are there as well. No one wants that.
The tracking industry depends on invisibility. So the moment you see what's happening and you do something about it, you have power. And these tools don't just block trackers, they reveal the scale of surveillance that most people never knew existed, which is why I think they're some of the most powerful tools to share with your friends and family. If you're new to this channel, if you're new to privacy, if you're new to digital rights, start with just one tool today. Try the transparency tool, try maybe even a more aggressive blocker and see if it works for you out of the box, and just see what's hiding behind your web pages. I think that seeing what's going on behind the scenes can be quite powerful and liberating. Links to all the tools I mentioned are in the description. Thank you all for watching. If you want to learn more about NextDNS, I have a whole masterclass on NextDNS as well as browser fingerprinting, so you can learn a lot more about those two concepts. And also stay subscribed because JP, who is the CEO of Ghostery, is going to be on Techlore Talks, and that whole full-length interview is about to be posted pretty soon. See you all next time on Techlore.